Okay. So that it's just it's a shame. Even though most of the media is there on Disney Plus, so you can get the full context of these characters. Like you don't have to go back and read the comics. You can. It'll enhance your experience, but you have the media there, and it's like if these writers and these creators have the media at the palm of their fingertips, and it's like they do still do this to the character. It's just it seems like they don't care.
Yeah.
And let me just put this little caveat there. The writer of this show, Tony Gilroy, who is responsible for the Bourne movies, and you already know how I feel about the Bourne movies if you guys have followed my channel. I think they're some of the most boring action films ever made. He doesn't even like Star Wars. He actually said that verbatim.
Yeah,
he
yes,
does not
yes.
care about Star Wars.
Yes.
And you can feel that watching this show.
Yes.
You can feel it.
I
Yes.
don't.
That's I don't understand like kind of to mini thing here. I don't understand why studios seem to like putting people who don't like these properties in charge of these properties. Once again, looking at the Michael Bay films, he said, he thought that the Transformers were stupid. He thought the designs were stupid and all that. And you still let him direct 5 films, actually.
Five.
Yeah.
Brian
Well, it
Singer. Hold on, before you say it, I have to say this because I'm just brought this up now, and this is something that holds a special place in my heart, similar with how Bigby feels about Transformers. X-Men.
Yes.
Brian Singer, with the original X-Men films, doesn't like the original comics of the X-Men. He actually went out his way to make sure that the actors don't read the comics. And you see how those movies turned out. I know there's people that are fans of the X-Men movies, but they are far from comic accurate. They don't even feel like the same characters.
It is still to this day a red flag whenever I hear a director say, "Don't read the source material" or anything like that. Not a good example, but not a good example. Not a good example what I'm about to say, but I felt like crimson flags when I heard about that for Last of Us. It was like, don't play the games. I'm like, what?
I mean, I feel about Castlevania, where thankfully this writer from Castlevania got canceled and is now off of the project. But Warren Ellis, for as much as he did for that TV show, one of the things that upset me was he pulled a character out from that arc of Castlevania, Grant Dynasty. He was like, this character makes no sense, and so he's just gone from my story. And I was like, why? Why?
I know.
Why?
I don't understand why studios
If you're gonna adapt
love
something,
just putting people who hate these IPs in charge of these IPs.
Now, I think there's a reason why they do that. I think Beefle was about to bring it up, but there are instances where there are creators or directors or writers that come into a property that know very little about it or not big fans of it. They're able to better adapt the source material for a wider mainstream audience who doesn't follow the source material. So just like a Christopher Nolan with Batman, he's not the biggest Batman fan in the world, and you see they take liberties with the Dark Knight trilogy, but it was accessible for a wide-going audience who doesn't read the comics. That's probably why they bring those the creatives in like that. So so it doesn't feel like it's just made for the fans, and the casual movie going audience or the casual TV going audience won't understand what's going on. I guess.
That's true, but it's still going 1 for 9 in terms of successes on that, man. You're still going 1 for 9 on that.
Yeah, I think what's sad about the show are the results of because you guys, the fact that he doesn't like the show does make me feel really bad about an aspect of the show that I think. Now, Seth, your frustration with this show, to me, embodies something it does embody something that is a really, really, really resonant sentiment that I've been kind of seeing, which is people who are like, this is Star Wars people who don't like Star Wars. And I'm like, no, I think that that's a bad thing to want this show to be. I think that it's bad to be like, oh yeah, if you don't like Star Wars, this is your Star Wars.
Yeah,
I don't, and the fact that it's a shame to hear Tony Gilroy doesn't like Star Wars, because I think this would have been, it would have made me feel a little bit better about liking it if knowing somebody who is passionate about the franchise worked on this in that was oh, because I feel like this is something that could be. It's sad because I thought this was born out of I believe this was born from a place of love almost, where it's oh, I just. In Star Wars, I never got to explore this part. Knowing that he doesn't like Star Wars and has made his own Star Wars kind of thing, while I love his vision and do think it still adheres to the Star Wars thing as a whole, it follows enough motifs and ideas. One aspect of the show I like is that it doesn't rely on callbacks the most. It does build off of lore and it requires some knowledge, but this is an independent watch, more so than anything else. Saw Gerrera's cameo and lack of character in the show is not a symptom of this show, if that makes any sense. It's not like, oh, it was always like this. I'm like, oh, this is just how Saw Gerrera's always been to me. Again, I'm missing the context of because I've only played a little, like I've played Fallen Order enough to like in a way I like it, but I haven't finished it all the way through. So I don't have Saw Gerrera's context there, but I would have hoped that this show was born from somebody that was like, I really, really like the series. But hearing that he didn't, well, I don't know if it's that, I haven't seen this myself, so I don't know if he said, I didn't like Star Wars, or I don't at all like Star Wars. But it is good to get creators, as already mentioned, it's good to get outsiders in on a project to bring their visions in, because it could be as something fresh, which to me, this was that's what the show did to me. Mm-hmm. It was something fresh. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that Star Wars is a fatiguing thing overall. I think that it's just that there's just too much of it. Same with Marvel. I wouldn't say Marvel's a bad thing. I just think there's too much of it, and that itself is bad. And so you could say that that's bad. Like too much. Yeah. Saying Marvel is bad to me means like a lot of things, but I'm just
saying that Marvel is bad is saying like Winter Soldier is bad, or like Iron Man is bad, or like any of the Avengers films are bad and stuff like that. And something to piggyback off of the whole like Tony Gilroy saying that he doesn't like Star Wars sort of thing, and that's getting sad. Creators on that are like that. That I get the point, but wouldn't it make more sense to get someone who doesn't know about Star Wars?
Well, hold on.
Right.
Rather than someone who hates it.
Though also to kind of piggyback off of that, I think that it's a good idea to do that for certain franchises. Yeah. Like you're talking about doing that with one of the most beloved franchises out there, Star Wars. Which that's a huge risk. Like, like when you look at okay,
you go first. Actually, I'll let you say a piece.
I was gonna say, when you look at, as much as I like to bash them, the Michael Bay films, that was like a franchise that was starting to lose its luster. Like people were starting to not pay attention to it. So that fresh take did kind of revitalize the franchise for what it's worth. But in terms of like Star Wars, like that's still very relevant. That's still got like a very lively fan base who dang near religiously reads like the source material. So it's like, if you bring someone who's like an outsider on for that, that's a huge risk. And
considering how much content we have for Star Wars, we have more than just movies to base Star Wars off of. We have books, we have shows, we have games. We can base our shit off of games.
Yeah.
At this,
when are they going to adapt the Star Wars horror novels? I'm ready for. I'm ready for. Listen, I think it'd be very, very brave of Disney to announce the Star Wars horror series with its giant Death Eater planets and describe the horrors of landing on a planet that's alive, sentient, and wants to eat you. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I was gonna say, when are we gonna get Darth Vader fighting zombies in his castle? When are we gonna get that?
If Marvel Zombies is successful, maybe.
When is Star Wars? What if? When do we get that arc? But I was going to say...
that would be something that I would love to see, is like a Star Wars What If show. I would love to see that.
Well, kind of that's what Visions is kind of filling the void.
I was going to say, that's what
Visions is kind of filling in that, but at the same time, like I want to see like a direct What If, like,
specifically about
what if Anakin stayed in the Jedi Temple? What if
Kylo Ren didn't fucking get bodied?
Right. What if Anakin, didn't win the Mos Espa?
What if they actually followed Finn's arc and made him a fucking Jedi like they should have originally?
Right.
The biggest what if of all.
Like what if Qui-Gon survived the battle on Naboo? Like, some stuff like that.
Yeah, like I would love to see that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. But I feel like I feel like that's sort of gonna lead into like Marvelizing Star Wars.
Well,
a little bit more too, because like if you're doing a Star Wars What If, that kind of presents another it gives us the idea of like we get to see the other side of like what a certain situation would be like if done differently. But the problem with that is where it's obvious at that point that they're trying to Marvelize Star Wars.
Well, that's
which again, I have said this like 5 times and maybe more on this channel already. I don't want Star Wars to be another Marvel.
It feels like it's going that path though.
It already has been that path.
I know.
I know.
The only thing Star Wars isn't like Marvel on is that rightly so, Star Wars stopped dropping movies rapidly. Because that was where it was the worst.
So far.
So far. Well, hold on. We're in a lull right now. I think they did the smart thing by deferring Star Wars into a television thing. What I was gonna say about Star Wars in this adaptation, there's a couple of thoughts I wanted to branch off on, and I don't want to dominate for a second. But I want to ask Ruby a question directly. Do you feel like Tony Gilroy's resentment for Star Wars as a franchise is something that courses through to you when you don't like the show? Like, do you feel like he resents you as a fan? Because that's
I don't think he resents us as the fan. Like, I think he
resents the fan. Doesn't resentment of Star Wars come through?
I think he understands that Star Wars has fans, but I think he's more interested in trying to tell like a different perspective of Star Wars. He's kind of like making his own like series of like his own like live action Star Wars visions without it being like the anime style or what we've seen. It's like it's his thing of Star Wars, which like we've seen something like that. We've seen something like that before with Rian Johnson. Jedi, where he I know.
I was waiting for him to come up.
I'm telling you.
No.
I love Rian Johnson, the director, so fucking much of everything but Star Wars. Never looked at Star Wars.
Of course, he's wearing the shirt over you.
Yeah. Let him cook.
Fuck you!
Let him cook.
I want to hear it.
With Rian Johnson, they tried to give his own perspective on Star Wars, where like, you know, he challenges the mythology. I know. There it is. Right there.
No. Let this man cook. Let this man.
Let
this man
go
cook.
Keep cooking. Keep cooking, bud.
Let this man cook.
Like I get that Tony Gilroy was trying to put his own spin and his own perspective on Star Wars. It's just for something like me, it just as a fan of the franchise that I'm used to seeing, or what I'm familiar with seeing rather, it just doesn't fit well with how I perceive of Star Wars, you know. And someone else would think that, you know, Andor is the Star Wars or like is the quintessential Star Wars. And that's great because like, you know, you have your own perspective on what Star Wars is. You can have your own vision, your own world or whatever. And you liked Andor, which is their perspective on Star Wars. I liked The Last Jedi, which is Rian Johnson's perspective on Star Wars. And it may be two opposing different examples, but I mean like the morality is there.
If I could give a couple of examples of that. We're gonna talk about Star Trek for a little bit. You know, sorry for the Star Wars fans that you didn't want me to bring up Star Trek in a Star Wars podcast.
No, we're at the point where Star Trek and Star Wars can be universally loved. We can have both.
Okay, for a lot of people, this is a very similar situation with, and I'll also bring up some Wizarding World example as well. But so first with the Star Trek reference, so it's a similar situation with J.J. Abrams when he came in and did his set of Star Trek movies. And for the diehard Trekkies that love the original stuff, there's a good amount of the fan base that saw JJ's movies and was like, "This is not Star Trek. This doesn't feel like Star Trek to me. This doesn't have the same type of like qualities that the original has. This is an abomination to the franchise." But then there's a majority of the mainstream movie-going audience, and even there's some Trekkies that do enjoy the original stuff that look at JJ stuff and was like, I'm one of those people that, you know, I wasn't big into Star Trek until Star Trek 2009 came out. I saw that Star Trek movie in theaters in IMAX. That was my first movie I saw in IMAX too, and I was like, I think I'm starting to become a Star Trek fan.
You can call J.J. Abrams a hack all you want. He did get a lot of us from our generation into Star Trek, me included.
Exactly.
He might be a hack, but he did do that for me, and I can't think of enough for that.
He did. His Star Trek movies, even though I'll admit there's some stuff with the writing that I feel like it's not as consistent as the stuff with the original stuff, but still, that's the stuff that got me into Star Trek. He made it accessible for everyone, for the most part. Now, now the Wizarding World stuff. What's for a lot of people in the Potterheads, they say that Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is their favorite movie. Alfonso Cuarón, who directed that film, knew very little about the books. Very little. But he came in and did a well-beloved Harry Potter film. Probably the best directed Harry Potter film in the franchise. And a lot of people consider that to be the favorite. So there are instances where, as we said before, creators coming in knowing very little about the source material. Because JJ also came in when he did the Star Trek movies. He wasn't a big Star Trek fan either. But look what he did. Look what he did with the franchise. So there are some instances where a creator that knows little about the source material can come in and make it accessible for a lot of people. But with Tony Gilroy, I'm kind of similar with Ruby, where it's like it's accessible for certain people that are getting fatigued with how they feel like Star Wars is formulaic with the Jedi and all that other stuff. They made it accessible for people.
They just want something different.
They want something different, which is totally fine, which is great. You have different.
Yeah, different's good.
Different is good.
I live by it.
Of course,
It just didn't work for me personally.
It worked for me personally, which is great.